Welcome to Chat and Chill. My name is Sean and I'm here to chat. I am so excited to be here on this morning. I'm so thankful and grateful for waking up this morning. And today I have a very special guest. She is very dear and near to my heart. I love her so much. And I'm so grateful that she took the
Oh.
opportunity to to join me on today. And her name is Ms.Jenn. And how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. You know why I'm feeling good? Because one last night we literally saw history being made with the first woman. Um, so I will say this: she's not the first woman to accept the Democratic nominee. However, she is the first African American woman and Asian American to accept the Democratic nominee. And I truly believe, deep down in my heart, she will be the first woman president of these United States. So I'm excited. I'm excited this morning to be Black, to be a woman, to be all those things. The sun is shining, and I am just full of energy. Some really great things lined up for the weekend. And so I'm feeling good. Today is a good day. Work is going okay today. So I'm feeling good.
That's good. That's good. So I guess that you already talked about it. Kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so let's start. I'm from Norristown, Pennsylvania, which is for those, because I believe that this podcast will go across the country. So for those who do not know where that is, it's a suburb right outside of Philadelphia. And I was born and raised there, but give you a little bit of background about my family. My mother was raised in New York, and then she moved to North Carolina when she was 11, 12 years old. And so that's where her mother was from. And then my father, he grew up in North Philadelphia, and then went to Virginia State University for his undergrad, and then ended up in Durham, North Carolina. So my parents actually met in Durham, North Carolina, lived there for a while. And then my mother, being just really just having the great foresight that she did. My dad was into behavioral health, like that was his career, and still is doing that 30 plus years, almost 40 years later. And at the time in North Carolina, there weren't a lot of resources for that career. So my mother said, listen, let's move back up to Philadelphia. And my dad didn't want to necessarily be in the city. So they wind up coming and setting roots in Norristown, Pennsylvania. And so I was born here. A lot of folks think that I was born in North Carolina. I was born here. And yeah, and so that's kind of my born story. And so I went to Norristown, public schools, Norristown Area High School, and then I went to Ursinus College, a small college right about 15 minutes outside of Norristown. So I didn't go super far, which is very interesting. And I guess we'll talk about that a lot more, about going to a college that is fairly close to home. And although it was close to home, I was super involved in college. And so I'm pretty sure we'll talk a little bit more about that. But from undergrad, I did my undergrad in history, and then I went to Harvard for graduate school. And so I got my master's from Harvard. And then my whole trajectory, I thought that I was going to be teaching, I was going to be in the academy. I thought that I was going to be teaching in colleges, get my PhD. And God had other plans, right? It was around the time where we were still going through a recession. And so, PhD programs weren't necessarily giving a ton of full scholarships to students and things like that. So I came back to the area and I started my career at the Philadelphia Freedom Valley YMCA. And very, very interesting story. Going back to my childhood, in sixth grade, I had a math teacher. And it was interesting because when I went to middle school, I was placed in a very low track because I had reading comprehension, what they thought was reading comprehension issues, right? And so I was in this gentleman's class, math class, and he said, this girl has no business being in this low track, right? Like, it's like, move her up. And so I was in high achievement classes from sixth grade all the way up to 12th grade. I believe really set me up on my trajectory, right? And we've all been in schools where, those who are in the higher achieving classes and things get a little bit more opportunity, right? Not to say that you're not going to be successful if you're there, but it's just you get a little bit of a leg up. And so I believe it really started the trajectory of my life, my educational journey by doing that. And so fast forward, I get my first job at the Philadelphia Freedom Valley YMCA. I pull up to the interview. This is even before I got the job, and they told me, they said, "Oh, you're going to be interviewing with the executive director." And I said, "Okay, cool. That's cool." I'm like, "Okay, whatever. I'm just trying to get a job, right?"
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was for this youth program director position at the YMCA, and it's the YMCA on Broad and Master Street. For anyone who knows Philadelphia, right there, Temple University campus, all in the mist. And so I pulled up and went into the interview. And when I walked into the executive director's office, I found out the executive director was my sixth grade math teacher.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I will say this: if y'all don't get anything else from this interview today, make sure, one, you are good in middle school, because you never know when that middle school teacher going to come back around and give you an opportunity. And I'm thankful that I was always the respectful student. I was always that, because, believe it or not, that probably went into his perception when he saw my resume, right? And said, we need to interview this girl. And let's just be clear, for this position, there were other people who were vying for this position who didn't have the experience. I mean, who did have the experience and who had wide careers, all that. And this girl, coming straight from grad school, wind up getting the position. I believe a large part of that had to do about who I knew, and that sixth grade math teacher. So that's just really, cool story. And so then from there, had a little stint in corporate, and that was fun, made money, and then went to a management consulting firm. And so that was extremely great. It was a Black-owned management consulting firm. And one of our largest nonprofit clients for that firm was the Urban League of Philadelphia. And so that's kind of what started my Urban League journey, as an adult and from a career standpoint. And then, about 5 years into that journey, someone literally said, "Well, you know that they're hiring in Delaware. They're hiring for a president and CEO." And I said, "What?" And so they're like, "Yeah, they're hiring for a president and CEO in Wilmington, Delaware, for the Urban League in Wilmington, Delaware." And so people kept on saying it. I heard it a couple of times. I'd seen the job announcement. And the funny thing about it is I had just gotten a huge promotion where I was, right?
Wow.
I'm like, I don't need to move, but I put my hat in the ring, because, folks who I, really did look up to their leadership, they told me about it. In a 6-month process, it was a lot of interviews. I will also say this: make sure your credit, do not ruin your credit. When you get into some of these higher paying positions, they will look at your credit score and your credit history. So young people, as you move into college and they want to give you all those credit cards and all that stuff, I'm telling you, keep your credit together, because really there are people who have been denied for jobs because your credit's bad. And so they did credit check, background check, all that good stuff. I mean, even down to, did she really go to Harvard? Where are the grades, right? So they did a thorough background check. And so after 6 months of the interview process, I think I had about 4 interviews. I was named the president and CEO of the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League. And so that was in 2022. So I've been in this role for about 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years in February 2025. But that's a little bit about me. Now, outside of work, I kind of gave you the work round. Outside of work, I do a lot as well. And I truly believe for everyone, you have to have a very well-rounded experience in life. Just because you never know where opportunities are going to come, right? So if you put all your eggs in one basket, if you just focus on that, and also you want to enjoy life, right? I mean, as busy as work is, I could also, once I close my computer, I can call a friend who's from this state or that state, and be able to connect with them because of the fact that I've done a lot of things. So I'm also a member of a sorority. I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which is the sorority of our future president of the United States, Kamala Harris, and so I am a member of that illustrious sorority, and that keeps me busy. I'm also the scholarship chairman for that sorority, so ensuring that folks get scholarships, young people get scholarships through our scholarship programming, and we've grown that program since I've been at the head of it, and so really excited about the impact that we make. I'm also very active in my church life, and so I serve as the youth director at my local church, and then also on our state jurisdictional level, we're a Church of God in Christ. So Sean and I are Church of God.
Yes.
And so we have local, districts, regions, jurisdiction, and national. And so on a jurisdictional level, which is like a state level, I serve as the youth department chair lady. And so what is that? That is basically the counterpart to the president of the youth department. And so together, the president and I ensure and look over all the youth programs for our entire jurisdiction, but then also ourselves make sure that we are bringing forth youth ministry from a state and jurisdictional lens. So that's essentially me. I think that is it from I'm a sneakerhead. I love sneakers.
Okay.
I was actually looking at some this morning, trying to figure out whether I want to buy them or not. It's always a dilemma, and I will tell you, I'm a real sneakerhead. Like when I see a sneaker that I like, I'm like, okay. I look at review videos, all of that, and so what I have learned, right, is that, I am also a person who really loves art. And so I think that was my first love with sneakers, is that just not seeing them as something that's on your foot, but also seeing it as a piece of art. And so so above with sneakers, I'm also into fashion. And so as you see with the glasses and all of that. So that's a little bit about me. And Sean, I'm pretty sure you have some great questions. So I'm going to be quiet. I talk for a living. And so I will just be quiet and let you ask me some questions and drink my coffee while you do. So,
okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I think that for you made it easy on me because, like I said, even though I'm still new to this, y'all. So for me, I'm grateful to have somebody that, is willing to be open and be vulnerable. Cause I feel like a lot of times everybody's not like that. So I'm thankful.
Oh yeah.
That you have that. You have the personality to do that. So I guess the first question I can ask you, because you did talk about your life, so I don't think we ask that anymore. So can you kind of go deep into your high school life? Like, what was your high school, different situation with that?
Yeah, so I will tell you, by the time I got to high school, I did not like middle school. I didn't like middle school. Middle school, and I didn't realize this because a lot of the times when we look at a lot of TV and things like that and media, we think that a lot of bullying happens in high school. But really, way more bullying actually happens in middle school. And part of that has to do with hormonal changes and things like that with young people, right? And so I did not like middle school because I had this one bully who was just made my life horrible. And it wasn't to the point where I didn't want to go to school or anything like that, because I still excelled. I still did everything I need to do. It just was like, this girl's really trying to make my life miserable, right? And I'm pretty sure, Sean, if I was to look her up now, I would probably understand possibly what she was going through at that time that made her such a bully. But at the time, it was like, this girl is literally making my life miserable. And so, and I also recognize there were some things in which, at the time, we don't think that we're privileged, right? I grew up in a 2-parent household, right? My parents were very much middle class. I always dressed nice. Hair was done. Like, all these things. I was smart, right? Articulate, all these things. And you never know that lens what someone is looking at from a view of enviness, and a view of enviness possibly just from, I don't have access to those things, right? And I want access. So anyway, so it was a lot of that going on. So I say all that to say, by the time I got into high school, I got my stride a little bit more. it was much larger. I feel that most of the students were really working towards something. And so I think our viewpoints were different. I really had a core group of friends. And so I really loved going to school in high school. I loved it. And we had to get on the bus like 7 o'clock in the morning. Like our high school was like, but I loved going to I loved it. And part of it, this is where I really honed into, I think, my personality, but then also my social skills too, right? I loved, a part of the reason why I loved being in high school and loved going to school is because I loved seeing the social interactions between myself and my friends or others. I loved the way in which people interacted. I loved those nuances and I loved watching it. I loved seeing it. And so I think for me, that's what really was a drawing card with school. And so I took German when I was in high school. Funny story. I took German because they were the only like language class that
Okay.
actually like took a trip, right? And funny story, I wind up not even going on the trip, but that was the drawing card for me to be in German. So I took it for 4 years, and I'm the kind of person, once I try something, I'm sticking with it. I'm a stick with kind of person. And so I took it for 4 years. I didn't switch. I'm like, nope, I'm doing it now. I'm gonna, I did fairly well in it, and so I kept it, and I learned the language. And did it for 4 years, and it was excellent. It was a wonderful class. And shout out to Frau Riefenall. I don't know if Frau Riefenall is still, teaching or not, but shout out to her. But she, I just really got into my stride. And then I will also say on another end, I really got into my stride academically. Senior year of high school, junior year changed my life, in which I had an African American English teacher. Her name was Linda Rouse, who really, really honed in and was hard on writing. She was the hardest person I've ever had, right? But when I tell you, she disciplined me so well with writing, which would again come in handy later on. But then senior year, I had another teacher, Mrs. Umo, and she was very much into another English teacher. She was very much into the arts, and so what she wound up doing is bringing in a professional playwright, to help all of us write our own plays. And we submitted them to the Philadelphia Playwrights. I don't know, the Philadelphia Young Playwrights. And I wind up winning third place out of like thousands of plays. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was like pretty cool,
Hmm.
my senior year. And it was this play called According to Their Purpose. It was like a backdrop in the 1960s. And it was really cool. Like I really, but it was just great in the way in which I saw creativity, and allowed me to mix my love for history. I always loved history, civil rights movement. That is me. I am a historian at my core. And so it allowed me to mix that, but then to also use my imagination and those nuances, like I said, with people that I often would like, right? It allowed me to be exploratory with that as well. So high school was really just a really great time. Did you have people who were, kind of silly, things like that? Of course, right? But by the time, again, I just got my academic stride, and that junior and senior year, it was nothing but just looking at college. So yeah.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
so. I think for me, listening to you say all the stuff that you say, I think a lot of that stuff resonates to me personally, especially like with middle school and elementary
Mm,
school. I had a
mm,
very hard time, like
yeah.
with people because
Hmm.
even though like we grew up in church, like they always say, turn the other cheek. So I was always the type of kid to be more settled and like not
Hmm.
fight so much. Like I was only one time I almost got suspended, but out of my entire school, like school, high school, middle school, I've never got suspended. So I'm grateful for that. But then it also had to mature me because I had to realize that sometimes the way that you are, everybody's not going to be like that. Like the way that
Oh
you
yeah.
mature is not
Oh
the way
yeah.
that other people are going to mature. And I feel like now, as a person, I'm starting to grow because especially I
Yep.
think that college really helped me because high school for me, like I love my high school buddies and friends, but the thing about it is I think I'm still working on my communication
Yeah.
because I'm the type of person that really holds back because you know how a person can be more like hurt and like they don't like kind of express their feelings, so you want to like hold back and not express yourself because you have people always
Mhm.
nitpicking everything you do,
Yeah.
everything that
Yeah.
you say. So I think for
Yeah.
me it was always like I was always like in a box. So I really didn't as a
Mhm.
heart. I don't know if I did a heart, but I was in a box.
Ah, I got it. I got it. I got
I
it.
was in a box.
Eh.
So I was always in a box. So for me, it was very difficult trying.
Mhm.
I feel like I was very misunderstood. Like even though I had people to
Yeah.
talk to, I've always had people to be around. I always had people to just communicate with. Like even like I think it's funny because one of my teachers, he's always like, "Why are you always talking to adults? Why are you never talking to your peers?" And I think that a lot of times I feel like for me, I love talking to adults because they have a lot of wisdom. They have a lot of things
Gotcha.
to say.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
when I
Gotcha.
talk to my peers, it's like when I talk to my peers in high school is very different. Like the way that the form of
Mhm.
communication is very different
Mhm.
than having someone that I know that can have a I guess mature enough conversation or
Yeah,
just
yeah.
yes,
And I will say, Sean, I was the same way. A lot of folks would describe me as an old soul. Um,
yes,
like a
hmm
wisdom old soul. And so, but eventually it catches up, right? And
hmm
so I'm in my 30s now, and that old soul catches up. But then there's still some immature things about me too
yeah,
that I'm like, I'm so
yeah,
silly, right?
yeah.
And so it eventually catches itself up.
Mm,
So don't be hard on yourself with that.
okay.
Just really kind of walk in who you are. Now, I will say, some of the wisdom, I was given that same wisdom, like, hey, hang out with your peers, hang
hmm
out, do this, do that. And so some of that you do want to do.
Yes, yes,
But it's okay to have the mix of it, right?
yes,
It's okay to
yes.
have the mix of it. It is
hmm
literally okay. And so yeah, because I was the same way, high school, college.
hmm
It really wasn't until I started to get into my career that's
Okay.
when it started to level off, because what it
hmm
was, because the career space, you're around people of all different ages and things like that. And with the career space is, although you may be an old soul, you may have very limited experience in what you're doing. So it
mm
does kind of require you to be a little bit of a novice. And so that's where I mean by it kind of evens
Even
itself
it
out.
out. Okay.
Right.
hmm
And so although yes, you have wisdom, you have things like that, but there's still a skill set that has to be developed. Right. And so that's where
Okay.
you really find it really evening out a lot. So give yourself some grace in that.
Okay.
Um, and I will say, don't miss out on, which I don't think you do, miss out on key things. Like I went to my proms, right? I loved my proms. I went to, I loved graduations, and, we would do things with the church and youth and all that. Like, so I leaned at youth retreats, right? I leaned into that, but, understanding that Jen's a little different,
Mhm.
and it's okay. And it really embracing that difference. Yeah.
Yes. I love that because that helps me out, and especially since going to college. So for y'all that don't know, I am a dual enrollment student, and I could probably say that. But I think for me, when I went to dual enrollment, because my teacher told me about it, and I was like, there's no way I'm doing this because I don't believe you. This is not
Mhm.
real. But when I went for my first class out, like I said, I was in the back, quiet. But then there were people that started
Mhm.
talking to me, and I felt more comfortable with those people
Mhm.
because now I feel a lot better than I was the
Yeah.
first year.
Yeah.
Because at first I'm like, I'm not saying no nothing to nobody, but you can't go around like that. I feel like a lot of times, sometimes your past have to make you to be who you are presently. And I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of times, different challenges, different people have to make you who you are
Mhm.
today. You have to like kind of go through that journey, even though it may be difficult and hard. You have to go through the journey because you never know where that journey can go. So
Mhm.
now when I go to school, I'm actually really friendly. I'm like, yo, what's up, dog? What's up, bro?
Yeah.
What's up, sis? So I'm just grateful that I've had people and they've always encouraged me, and like that helped me because I'm a parent's kid. Like I'm a mom. I'm a mama's
Yeah.
boy, and I'm a
No, same
dad's
thing. I'm a
son.
mommy's
Yeah,
girl. And
yeah,
even
yeah. I love my dad.
now, I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm calling my parents. What are y'all doing this weekend? We should
Yes,
hang out.
yes.
And so, no, very much. But even in that, I will say, Sean,
hmm
that is also a beautiful thing too,
hmm
right? And so, and literally I have other friends who are like, oh my gosh, you're so close with your parents, right? I'm like, yeah. I said I love them, right? And I
Yes,
call them my forever roommates, right?
yes.
And so, but yeah, but I also have friends, right?
hmm
And I also have obviously my church family,
hmm
and my colleagues, right? And so I have different buckets of folks. Now the cool thing about it is is that because Jen has acted, and this is really like the true testament where I really look at with people, because of the fact that Jen has been, I've kept my brand of Jen in all areas. I can also mix that group when it makes sense, right?
I
And
like
so
that.
when I, host something for Christmas, it could be somebody from church here, someone from work, someone from sorority, someone from there, and they all have the same thing. Yep, this is Jen. This is Jen, right? And so, and that's a testament of, I've always looked at that and said that's a testament of my character, because I know some people who literally will not mix crowds at all, and I'm like, hold up, now are you acting completely different over here than you are here? And so that's hard for them, but for me, I'm able to do that, and so that's why I tell young people balance is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to be able to have that large village, right? You
Yes.
want to be able to have that large village. So anyways, so yeah.
Yes. Yo, this conversation is so good. I like this. But
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking, because now as you say that, I've like now, because like yesterday, I'm not sure if I told you, but I took a final yesterday, and I was kind of telling my listeners about it. Actually, so the day is Friday, so it's gonna be airing sometime in September. But I took a final yesterday, and I passed the class. Thank God. I'm so
Oh,
thankful. I
great.
passed
Congrats.
it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was so excited because I'm telling you, compared to last time, I think I did a lot better. Last time
Yeah.
it was bad, it was awful. But
Yeah.
I'm learning, like you said, to really balance it out. I'm
Yeah.
being okay, and I think now I'm in a phase where it's like, be okay with yourself, and like
Yeah.
don't try to be everyone's stereotype. If you know what I'm trying to say. So being
Yeah.
confident in yourself, being confident with who you are, not just for yourself, but being a light for Christ. Because I know a lot of times we can go through different
Mm-hmm.
places and meet different people. So now it's like a shift, and I'm grateful. Like I said, I'm grateful for everybody I've came across with. And this year, since I'm a senior, I think my dad here really wanted me to. He said this to me, and I think I'm gonna take it into action. Try to talk to your peers in high school. So even though I'm not
Okay.
technically at the high school anymore, I'm gonna challenge myself to actually do that.
Yeah.
Challenge myself to get comfortable, because, like I said, I've always held back for so long because I just knew
Mm-hmm.
it was always gonna be some type of fight back. But now I'm confident,
And a
and
way to
because
kind of do that is the
mhm,
bond over interest, right?
okay,
So think about like clubs, or you get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
so there's a common interest and a common
hmm
goal.
hmm
Because I know just like randomly making friends can be difficult. Like, I
the
don't
real,
know
yeah,
this person, I don't like this person. But when there's a common interest or a goal, I think
yes.
that will be that's an easy way to do that.
Yes, I experienced it. I think with my first friend. Her name is Glow, and we talked over the phone this one time. And I was like, "Hey, how are you?" Like we was first meeting each other. We just had the class and stuff. And when I tell you, it was so hilarious. It was actually very hilarious, because when I texted her, she was so excited to hear from me, and I was like, "Do you like wrestling?" Because like that's something I love. I love wrestling. And she was like, "Oh my goodness, I love it." I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
see, look at this. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just so, like I said, I'm very grateful for
yeah,
just the people that I've met and still
yeah.
meeting, because I think the connections are good. And I think a lot of people take that in the wrong way, because people are like, don't be trying to use people. No, sometimes your connections are
Oh
very
yeah.
important, and it don't have to be shady. You don't have to go off in the wrong way. You can be nice and show that you care, show that you are genuine about who you are as a person. And yes, like I said, I like this. So I guess we can go into the next question. So we talked about high school. We talked about a little bit about your personal life. So what was the experience like applying for colleges,
Mm-hmm.
and what was your college experience, especially like with the major and all that stuff
Mm-hmm.
that you had to deal with?
Yeah. So, applying to college is real. It
Mm-hmm.
happens very fast. And so I will tell you, my junior year, I really leaned in and took advantage of my school, did a good job of, we had a college career counselor who was good in making sure that we explore colleges. So like she would actually do college tours in the summer. And so yeah, she would actually do college tours in the summer and things like that. And so that was good. So I took advantage of all of those. So I believe, was this my junior year? Had to be my junior year. Was it my junior year or senior year? Either way, it was one of those. So junior or senior year, I actually um really took advantage of a lot of the college tours. And I would encourage anyone who's applying to college, go on the tour. You can see a brochure and you think you may want to go there, and it may be a popular school that everybody wants to go to, and da da da. But then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not what I want to. And not because the no, no, no. And it's not because sometimes the campus is dilapidated or anything like that. Campus could be pristine. It's a feeling that you literally get, and I cannot describe it, right? It's a feeling that you get when you step on a school and then you say, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to spend the next 4 years of my life. This is where I can see myself, right? You literally get that feeling, right? The one regret that I have is that I did not do more college tours at an HBCU. Mainly because a lot of the HBCUs are far, right? And I wish, and the thing about it is my parents would have been willing to do it, right? My mother's from Durham, North Carolina. You know what I mean? There's like 3 HBCUs, like 4 HBCUs in that area. So I could have done that, right? Okay. I just think for me, HBCUs weren't on my radar, but I wished, I'm telling you, Sean, if I had stepped foot on an HBCU campus, I think I would have been an HBCU graduate, right? Just because of the culture and seeing people like you, the representation, right? I didn't realize. I was watching a show the other day, and I'm like, I really, really like this show. I really, really like this show. And I kept on rewatching episodes and things. And I said to myself, why do I keep on rewatching these episodes? And I thought about it. It was because it was the representation, right? I saw Black people who were thriving, who were dealing with, everyday situations and things. I'm like, that's representation. So when we say that representation matters, it really does, right? And so I think if I would have stepped foot on that HBCU campus and would have met the lunch lady who said, come on, baby, come on back here. And, met the administrator who's like, we're going to make sure you're a star. Like, I think literally I would be an HBCU graduate. So that's the one regret that I do have. However, God has big plans, right? And so I don't believe my college, where I did decide to go to college, was a mistake. And so what I did do, Ursinus College, when I went on campus, it really spoke to me. And let me tell you the reason why it spoke to me, because they had, unlike the other predominantly white institutions that I had explored, they had a dedicated department to ensuring that Black and brown students were successful, right? And so they really put resources into that. So my first step on campus, that's what I was hearing. So I'm like, cool, I can see myself here. I can do this. It was very different than others, right? So that's why I said, again, if I had really taken to a HBCU, I think I would have been drawn to that aspect of Black folk, right? Black and brown folks and people really, caring about my success. But that's what drew me to Ursinus. And I applied. They have this thing called early decision. And so now I think it's early decision, early action, early this, that, all these different categories. But then it was early decision. And I applied early decision because I wanted to know by Christmas where I was going. I wanted that to be my Christmas gift. I ain't had to worry about anything else in college except for just trying to make sure I got out of high school, right? I didn't want to worry about anything else except for, making sure that I kept my grades up to get out of high school, right? I didn't want to have to deal with the college admissions process during spring, all that. So what ends up happening, I wind up getting in. I think I applied to 5 schools. Many of them were kind of the same kind of schools, PWI, smaller. And I wind up applying to, and I got into Ursinus. I did get a small scholarship, and then, parents had to kind of kick in some other aid and things like that. But that's my trajectory to Ursinus, and the rest is history. Now, I will tell you, I've met some, I still have friends. Oh my gosh, I still have really great friends from Ursinus, right? Some of my best friends are from Ursinus. My college roommate actually is supposed to be coming and visiting me today, right? And you're talking about, I graduated in 2009. How many years is that, right? And so, what is that? 13 years, 14, 15? I don't know. My math is a little off these days. I think it's 15 years. And so she's actually coming, and then I have other friends, right, who are doing amazing things with their careers, right, where we're still friends. So the college experience was great, right? I did allude to, I didn't come home often, although I did only go to college about 15 minutes away, because I really entrenched myself in college life. I was like active in a lot of things. I was taking full load of classes each semester. I was the president of the Black Student Union. I was in honors courses when it came to history, and I also was a part of the chaplain staff, right? So I did a lot when I was at Ursinus. I also, during the summers, I did heavy research. And so I actually had a great opportunity one summer to go to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, to do a cool research program that was there. And then, did other research apprenticeships on the campus as well. So anyway, so those are all the things. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm so glad you was able to have that experience. I know for
Yeah.
me, on the other hand, people always ask me, "What you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know what I'm waiting for." And I think for me, I think the first thing is the pressure, and it's the fact that kind of blacking out the noise of like what I want to do, because me honestly, I have no idea what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I guess being okay with that, because people make it seem like sometimes they're like, you have to know what you want to do, and it's just like, I,
No, and so that's where I encourage
mhm,
young people to do liberal arts. And so Ursinus is a liberal arts institution. So when people hear liberal arts, they think of like an art school, and that's not necessarily what it is. So liberal arts is essentially a school or a kind of an education methodology in that a student will actually explore many different things. And so
okay,
at Ursinus, we had prerequisites in which you had to take in everything. You had to take a prerequisite science, you had to take a math, you had to take this, you had to take that. Whereas some of these other schools, you don't have to do that, right? You don't have to take a math to graduate. It's just like, well, no, whatever your major is, right? And so at Ursinus, we were able to explore, and I'm thankful for that, because when I went into Ursinus, I really thought that I was going to be a math major. I had done well my senior year in calculus. I had, AP points, all of that, to go into Ursinus. And then I got into an actual college classroom, and I was like, and I realized I didn't love the subject of math. I just loved my teacher in high school. And that's why I did so well. So I scooted right on over to the history department, where I should have been the first day, but it was okay. And obviously, I wind up excelling there. I wind up excelling in history, so that wind up working out. But I really encourage liberal arts education
okay,
for students, and also just exploring. Like your first year, do your prerequisites, right?
mhm,
Some folks come in first year and want to go hardcore major. You got time. First semester, second semester, do your prerequisites, get your GPA high, and then really get into your major, because you never know what you'll wind up really liking, what really sparks you,
okay,
and you just never know. And then the other part of this, unless you're going into something like very specific where you have to have a certain amount of prerequisite classes, like, so for instance, like pre-med and this, or nursing, and usually a lot of that happens with the sciences. Like if you're saying, oh, I don't know whether I want to go to law school or not, don't pigeonhole yourself to pre-law, right? I mean, I think that there are some other opportunities there. I know a lot of people. I know someone who majored in biology is in law school right now. I know someone who underground major was religion. Her and I went to Harvard together. She kept that up, and then she decided to go to Penn to get her nurse practitioner degree. And now this girl's a nurse practitioner. She's not a chaplain. She's a nurse practitioner in the hospital after doing all this religion, right? So there's so many different opportunities and places you can go if you're open. The other part of this too, the large part of this, our world is moving super fast, right?
mm,
So I will tell you right now, Sean, the job that you will probably end up with is probably not even created yet.
wow, that's so true. That is so true.
So,
Technology.
right, because of technology, right? I mean, I think about the job. We now have jobs where folks literally work with corporations to just respond to social media, right?
Hmm.
That was not a job. And making six figures, that was not a job when I was in college, right? That's not a job. Or this influencer culture, or other things that are happening, right? Even in the sciences and things like that. A lot of these jobs haven't even been created, right? So I tell students to go in focus, but do not go in focus, but do not go in rigid, right? If that makes sense. So, all focus, no rigid, right? And so focus being that, hey, you do want to complete your degree in 4 years and you do want to be focused in an area, but understanding rigidness that plans may change. Again, look at me, right? I thought I was on a trajectory, PhD, ivory tower, all that, right? It wound up not working out that way. And so I was focused. I knew that I wanted to be successful. I knew that I wanted to make impact. I knew that I wanted to work with people, right? But I couldn't be rigid with just saying, I have to do PhD work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I never forget when I was at Harvard, when I was graduating, and I was a little down because, again, I had the best laid plans, right? I was like, I don't know what's going to happen after this. And da-da-da. And I never forget a person literally says, Jennifer, you do not have to be in a PhD program in order for you to create the impact that you want to create. And it was literally the most just the most earth-shattering advice, because a lot of times we regulate ourselves to systems to tell us that we're successful. And it's just simply not true. And again, with an ever-changing world, success in 2011, when I graduated at Harvard, is not looking like success right now, right? People are doing different things. People have different innovations, all of that. So that's why I said be focused, but not be rigid when you go into your college career.
Yes. Actually had a conversation with a lot of amazing people, especially talk about colleges and different stuff like that. I think the main thing I'm understanding now is that going to college to do something that you enjoy. And I think that not even just having a career path, but sometimes you have to just find something that you like. So like right now, I love podcasting. I love people. I love social media. Now, I may not use social media a lot, but I love taking pictures. I love posting, like doing stuff here and there. It may not be as frequent, but that's something I enjoy.
So looking at communications is huge for you.
That like either media communications. So that's why
which is a very broad field, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can, when you come out with a degree in that, you can make that into so many different things, right? And so that's why I'm saying the focus, but not being rigid, right? So because again, in the social media and communications, we have AI that's getting ready to be produced, and there's jobs coming out of that. Like there's so many things that are coming out, and so just understanding that you don't want to be rigid but be focused. Yeah.
Okay, especially don't forget, like she said, if you don't know what you exactly want to do, just go to liberal arts, y'all. Go to liberal arts. Go to liberal arts.
Go to liberal arts, or if you don't go to a liberal arts school, just make sure that you kind of take the opportunity to explore a little bit about what you may like as far as classes and things of that nature. So don't be, so pigeonholed into one thing.
Yes. So since you talked about college, and I feel like this is really interesting because you did mention going into one of the colleges, and you was like, "Oh, what is the difference between?" I'm not sure if you went to did you go to HBCU?
I didn't. I said
No?
I wish.
You
I
wish.
would
Oh,
have.
you wish. Okay.
If I would have toured a HBCU, I think I would be a HBCU graduate.
Okay. Yeah, because I think for me, I think people is like, go expose yourself to different colleges, and I'm like, do I want to do that? so now since on my free time, I really am looking for like the like where I think location wise, I'm still trying to figure that out because I don't want to stay near home. So, you want to talk about that? Like, so, like, what is the difference between like staying home and like going away? Like what is like the difference between that?
So, like I said again, for me, although I went to college 15 minutes away from my house, I never was home. Even during the summer, I entrenched myself into. So I tell young people all the time, right? It really isn't about the distance. It's really about how you make your experience. So if you know that home is 15 minutes away and you know that you're going to be home all the time, is that really an experience that you want, right? Versus, college campuses are kind of cities all in itself, right? And so if you truly lean into the experience, there's very little that you will want to do at home. You want to be around college, you want to be around your friends, you want to be, right? Like, so that's literally what you want to do. The one thing I will say though about going to college far away, what you have to understand, and this is just a financial thing and just kind of wrapping your mind around this, is that I'll give you an example. Going home for Christmas and Thanksgiving, right? Typically, Thanksgiving happens and then you come back to campus, you may have a week of classes, and then you're in finals, and then you go home for Christmas, right? Students who are typically far away, rarely probably go home for Thanksgiving because it's such a quick turnaround, right? And so understanding that, oh, I may not be able to go home and get mama's mac and cheese, right? May be a sacrifice that you have, particularly if you're going away far, right? I mean, now it's different. Different people have different financials, all of that. But understanding that that's a high possibility. So I have, I know a student, a good friend of mine, or, her daughter, she's in school in North Carolina. Well, what she did, she has a lot of friends who are from North Carolina. She went home with them for Thanksgiving because it's also a very short break, right? So so it's like those kind of things you got to wrap your head around, because your parents may not have the funding, right? And as you see, airfare is very expensive. The funding to necessarily fund for you to be coming home every other week, right? Or, quick things like that. But again, if you're really truly into a campus and stuff, you really don't want to come home. You're so involved. I mean, and it's so funny. You have a lot of time in college, but you don't have a lot of time if you're truly involved with things, right? And it goes so fast. It really does. And so that's the only caution that I would say with moving away. But again, that's just something of making sure that you have your mindset right to know, right? And so, Sean, if you go to Morehouse, trust me, there's a whole lot of other brothers there who from Atlanta, from wherever, and they got black mamas who gonna say, "Come on, Sean, you coming home with us for Thanksgiving, okay?" So you'll be all right.
Okay, all right.
You'll be all right.
All right.
If you decide to go to North Carolina to school at North Carolina Central or A&T, I got family in that area, so I'll make sure you are right? And so it's just understanding that part of it with going away. But it really, if you're entrenched in a college life, being 15 minutes or being 9 hours away, it really don't make no difference because you're going to be on campus the whole time. It don't make no difference. And the way technology is now, right?
You can FaceTime.
I can FaceTime, or mom, can you deposit whatever in my account because I need something? You know what I mean? It's very different than I would say 20 years ago where you're waiting on mail and all that. Like, no, it's a Cash App, it's Zelle. So the access is a lot different.
Yeah.
And understanding just even the access to resources. Because I think before, with going away, it's like, even parents would say, well, I can't get to them or resources or this or that. But now technology is so different with financials and, and many other things that you really don't have those barriers the same way you did probably when I was going to school.
Yeah. So what do you think is the difference between, because I think for me, I'm just an old soul myself, kind of. So like every time, like even I was not born in the 90s at all, a 2000s kid. So what did you think, like what's one thing about college or like something in your life that happened in the 2000s that you feel so or in the 90s that you had so much nostalgia?
At the 2000s?
The 2000s, 90s, yeah.
Lean with it, hey, rock with it, hey, lean with it, hey. Or what is the one? There's one, lean with it, rock with it. There's Knuck of Your Buck. All those things, which as a 30-something-year-old, right, my knees are paying for it right now, okay, because of all of that. And yes, this chair lady saved person did go to parties. I did go to parties. I did have a good time, okay? I still was good, but I had a good time. I danced. I did all of that because that's part of the college experience as well. And so, yeah, that's kind of the 2000s. I mean, we didn't have, I remember when I was graduating from college, that's when the iPhone first came out. And I don't believe it had FaceTime at that point. It was just coming out. Apples were starting to get very, very big. And so to have an Apple computer, I think very much how it is now, to have an Apple computer was like golden, right? Like you was really doing if you had an Apple computer. And so it wasn't until I went to Harvard that I got my first Mac computer. But yeah, we had Dells, right? Dells was a huge thing back then. And actually Ursinus gave all their students, I don't know whether they still do it, but they gave all their students laptops because they wanted to remove the barrier. So everyone had laptops at Ursinus, and it was Dell laptops they gave them to it, and you had to return them upon graduation. But yeah, it was a good time. I'm trying to think. other, I mean, there's probably things that we could do now that we probably didn't have the technology to do then, but it was all fun.
It was all fun. Yeah.
It was super fun. It was super fun. It was super fun. You don't miss what you don't have, right? So it
That's
was
so
super
true.
fun, right?
Yeah,
It was
this is
super
true.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be sitting in my seat in 20 some years and be like, oh my gosh, in 2024 we didn't have this, but now we do, so yeah,
Yes,
so this is what it is. Yeah.
it is what
But
it is.
the music, we had great music in college during that time. So it was just really just a great way. And I will say college is also a space too, particularly when you go to a PWI, a predominantly white institution. It's also a space where race is a factor, don't get me wrong, because we did have a BSU, we had all this, but it also was probably one of the last times in life where you really don't have that cloud of racial strife above you, right?
Mm.
In that you can, party with your fellow person who's probably going to be, who may be some person on Wall Street, right? And you probably won't be living next to each other, but you know what I mean. But it's kind of that, and so also is that very idealistic time. And students, everyone is idealistic, right? I mean, you have a few people who was like, well, "What's wrong with you?" But most everyone's idealistic. So you find that as a whole, and so that's why I love, when I go back, whenever I get a chance, I love to go back and talk to students that are sinus and, about my career and things like that. And I love just looking at them and just see the twinkle in their eyes as they're getting ready to embark on this world, right? And just the idealism that they have in embarking on this world. So yeah.
That's what's up. Like, I just love your experience because, like, I think for me, every time I do episodes like this, it always gives me a feel of like hearing a person's story, because every person's story is important to me, and every person's story is different, and everybody had to they had to go through certain different things, they go through certain different challenges to get to where they are today. Like I said, I appreciate you so much. I'm not crying. I'm not crying. No. But no, I appreciate you. But so going to college, going to back on the college topic, did you know what major you have, and how did that form any opportunity that you had, and did you take what other extracurricular things did you do in college, or like internships that you have
Yeah. So for me, I always was a history buff, and so I knew history was where I wanted to go. Again, I tried the math track, and which I'm glad it didn't. That would have been for me. It would have been a boring life. Shout out to all math majors. I guess you're living a great life. I don't know. But anyways, so history major, and what that opened up was a lot of opportunity for me. So I will say, also going to a predominantly white institution, I believe I was, I think if I, again, small school, and I don't know whether it's a feather in my cap or it just shows, how racism, shows its ugly head. But I was the only Black female as a history major that kind of made it to senior year. It was a very white environment. And I came with a very different lens of wanting to do African-American history. And, you just did not have folks who were operating in those areas. And so because of that, I will say, I got opportunities because I was almost an anomaly. And so I did spend one summer going to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and doing extensive research there, which University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill is absolutely a gorgeous campus. Big, beautiful. That's where MJ went to college, Michael Jordan. And so it's just a gorgeous campus. It was beautiful being down there for the summer. And it was paid. I remember it was a paid research apprenticeship. And so it was great. And then the following summer, I wind up staying on campus at Ursinus doing Gilliam Fellows. Not Gilliam Fellows, excuse me. That's a current program we run with the Urban League, but Summer Fellows. And so Summer Fellows was a research apprenticeship. And so I was able to hone in on my research there. And then I turned that into an honors project. And so I graduated from Ursinus with honors. And I graduated cum laude as well. And so it was just... those were the opportunities that kind of came up. I also wind up winning the top history award for the department when I graduated. Yeah. So it was a lot of great opportunities that I got. And I think that trajectory, that research really set me up for my life in graduate school. And so I wind up applying to Harvard and Yale. I got into both. Wind up receiving actually a full ride to both, but Yale, Harvard gave me more money, outside money to live on. And so I was really, really excited about going to Boston, being at Harvard. And so, yeah, so that's where I ended up. But, just thinking about a lot of what I chose as a major really led to that point. And then, I had other friends who did well as well. I have a friend who, she was a bio major. She's now, she went to Philadelphia College for PCOM, what is it, osteopathic medicine. And then she went to Morehouse School of Medicine for her residency. And so she's now in Atlanta as a pediatrician, right? And so doing great things there. So anyway, so there were a lot of opportunities that came, but again, it all took you leaning into it, right? And so, you have to be very aggressive when it comes to this. I know the way I ended up at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, is that I asked my advisor, I said, listen, I can't go home for another summer. My freshman year, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I was home for the entire summer, and I think I worked, a little retail job, but I'm like, I'm bored, like you go from kind of being in classes, doing that to now. And so I told him, I said, listen, I cannot be home another summer. And so that he was like, okay, no, absolutely. And so he wound up referring me to that program. So yeah, so all those things are really important. Yeah.
That's good to see that you. So even though that you was going through like your challenge with like being the only Black woman there, that you was able to find a way to have that other stuff to do, even in your major of history. Because look, math. We're gonna talk about math because I just took a math, like I said, math test yesterday, and man, look, even the tutors, I'm thankful for y'all. I thank God that you're in my life because I don't know, I don't know how I would have done it. But you know what? The thing about it is, I believe that I think I talked about this in last week's episode. I talked about perspective, and I feel like sometimes your perspective can be wrong in like how the way that you view something. And I feel like for math, I think math, once you understand the basics, then everything else just kind of roll along, and it's up to you on how much you want to learn it. So like, and I think for me, I'm learning like to not give up on a certain topic. Science, but I'm not giving up on it because you never know. Because like for real, I remember last semester I had took a criminal justice class, and I'm like, criminal justice, this don't, like, what is that? But when I was inside the class, I was so interested, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so crazy. I'm learning about all this different stuff. I'm like, I didn't think that it was all. So like I said, do not give up on a certain class. Do not give up on the class, because you just never know what you may learn. You may never know how.
You never know.
You never know,
little bro. You
never know. So I guess so. When it came to school in Harvard, so how was that experience with Harvard and Yale, like the other colleges that you had went to?
Yeah, so Harvard was cool. I will tell you, one of the things I didn't prepare myself for was Boston itself is not a very warm city. Not warm in temperature and not warm in people. And so there were certain comforts of community that I missed in Boston. So people will say, would you ever move back? Probably not, because of the culture that was in Boston. I mean, and it's so funny. Everyone experiences it, right? They're like, yeah, no, we get it. We went to Boston, we get it. And so but Harvard was good. Harvard was good. I think for me at Harvard, I had to find, you're sitting in the room with folks who have gone to the elite of the elite, right? But one of the things my mentor said to me prior to even going and stepping foot in the classroom to say, Jen, if you're in that classroom, he said, people at Harvard admissions know what they're doing. So if you're in the classroom, you deserve to be there. You're smart enough to be in the classroom. And so that was all the ammunition I needed. And I was, and I spoke up, and I, I sat in that. I was very, flat-footed in that for sure. And it just was, it was a good experience. And I still have people from Harvard as well who are doing phenomenal work. And I will say alone, even, even my degree didn't necessarily lead me to a PhD program. When folks see Harvard on a resume, it's like I get the interview and I don't even know what the job is about, right? Like it's just one of those things. It does open doors. It does, and I have used it in that capacity. I have even used, let's just be clear, the decal on my car. I have my little Harvard decal on my car, and that has gotten me out of tickets before. Not that I was doing anything wrong, but just understanding just what that name represents to people, and just quite frankly, what they think people who go to Harvard are like, and so I've used it in all those areas. I've used it, but yeah. So it's just not necessarily about the degree, but it's also about the prestige, I guess, that comes with it. But it was a great experience. I spent 2 years there. It was my master's. I remember one year, and when I say cold, right, from community, but it's also cold in temperature. I remember one year in the month of February, it literally was a significant snowstorm every single week, like
Wow.
3 feet of snow. And the thing with Boston is very different than in other cities. They're used to this and they're prepared for it and they put it in their infrastructure. So it's like once the snow stops, things back open. Okay, so they don't miss their stride at all. So that's a beautiful thing. At least you don't have, but yeah, but it was that kind of experience. But once I was done, it was a good closed chapter, and it was like, see y'all later, bye. Got my degree, and I'm good. And actually, I have my degree over here somewhere in a frame
In a frame.
that I need to put up on a wall. I paid enough money for the frame. You'll find that these diploma frames are expensive. But yeah.
That is so. I just your intelligence and wisdom. I think it's amazing. It really is. So for real, I'm being like really serious. So, is there any advice that you have for like recap of advice that you have for people that's going into college?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things, and we'll do like a couple of tidbits. So one, be led by your faith and never by your fear. And so, for opportunities and things like that, just be led by your faith. You never know how things are going to work out. And I will tell you, I take that I take that motto with me even still now. Try. Right. And so that's number one. Number two is, if you are in the room, you deserve to be in the room. Right. So that's number one. When you are at the table, make sure that you speak up, because not only you're at the table just for you, but you're at the table for future generations. Right. And so that is extremely important. And then last but not least, have fun. You're never going to get these 4 years back again. Have fun and stay balanced. Have fun and stay balanced. And then last but not least, I'm sorry, I said that was the last one, right? Last but not least, make sure you build your network. Make sure you build your professional and personal network. You never know how those things are going to come back and benefit you in the end. So, and you also be a network to somebody else, right? So don't always be a person who's give. Who's take, but also be a give as well. And that makes you invaluable in relationships. So, yep. So that's all I got to say, Sean.
Okay, all right. That's some amazing advice. So have balance. Okay, I'm gonna put that in my notes. So I can write that down. Let's put that for myself and have
Yes.
balance, because like I know like this adventure with college and papers, and it's like, oh my goodness. But I'm just grateful. I just wanted to take a few short minutes to remind you to not forget to turn on your notifications so whenever a new episode airs, y'all can get it. I'm on YouTube at Chat and Chill with Sean. I'm on Spotify at Chat and Chill with Sean. And wherever else y'all get y'all podcasts. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, so y'all can get the little videos and clips that I have for the episode that I'll be publishing. But hopefully y'all enjoying the episode. And now we're going to go back into the interview. Growing up, cause I know like we both Kojic, Church of God in Christ. We are the Church of God in Christ. Hallelujah. But so I wanted to know like what was that like growing up, and like how did that help you throughout your life and to where you are now as being a youth cheerleader?
Yeah, so I will say growing up in the church is the best education that you can ever have, right? in that the church has always historically been a place where you can exercise your agency and certainly your speaking skills and your leadership skills and all from a young person, right? I think of Sunshine Band. Sunshine Band is where I first started with speaking in front of people, right? Now I talk for a living. I speak in front of people all the time, right? And if I didn't have that comfort, so it is really a great training ground. And then it also is on the spiritual faith aspect, right? It is certainly a good training ground because life be lifing. If you do not have a strong prayer life, if you are not connected to Jesus, this life can overtake you. So it is really having that strong foundation of prayer. My mother laughs all the time. Thea's Temple at my church, we used to do all night prayer. And I used to hate it, right? But again, it would be, because as a young person, right? Like, who wants to go to all night prayer on a Friday to a Saturday, right? But it was, again, that foundation of where prayer lies, even in my life, right? And understanding that. And then I would say last is having the community that prays for you, right? When I go to state meetings or district meetings, everyone's always saying, "Sugar, how you doing? We're seeing your life. We're so," and there's a sense of pride and proud that's there, right, for the success that I have accomplished. Mainly because those are I am the living testament to many of their prayers, right? They prayed for me when I was going through college and things, and so now to see me here, right, that is a walking faith to say this is what prayer does, right? This is what but that community that loves on me, that hugs me, that when I'm down, I can pick up a phone, outside of my parents are definitely prayer warriors, but outside of them, right, I can pick up a phone and I got a whole community that's praying, making sure that things turn around. So that's a large part of it. And I will say, as far as my role as chair lady, I'm very, very big on, again, and I talked about it, balance, but I'm very big on making sure education and making sure that you are accomplished in your so-called secular life as much as you are accomplished in your spiritual life. I feel that sometimes folks get either one or the other right, and I think you need to have both. And so it was really my accomplishments in my secular life of, the education and, the jobs and things like that, which I'm pretty sure that led to me being influential and even being considered for the position of chair lady, right? And that's something that I take very, very seriously, to know that, again, it was the prayers of the saints. It was the trainings of the Sunshine Band. It was the growing up as a daughter of this church to now being where I am now. And so that's what I would say with that.
And I thank you because you have given me opportunities that I didn't think that I would have. Like, you call my mom, like, "Can Sean do this?" Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, me? So like I said, I'm just grateful.
But that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to give opportunities to the next generation so that, listen, 20 years from now, well, I don't even say 20 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever, right? Sean is the next youth president, right? And somebody else is right? So, I mean, you, this is what you're supposed to, this is what good leaders do. You develop others, right? And if you're not doing that, I mean, if you're not doing that, it's not a good succession plan. It's not good for the future of our church. So I'm glad that you said yes, because, I'm glad that you always say yes.
Oh, thank you. So since you're in a role of a CEO, what is it like to have the prestige of being in that role and the process of, the interview and stuff. But like kind of go deep into like that process again, and like kind of talk about how does it make you feel to just do your own thing?
So CEO was a great title to have, but the underlying point of it is a lot of folks don't see what happens behind closed doors. I was joking with my team this summer because we were running this youth program actually, where we were tasked with purchasing professional gear for all the students in the program. And we ourselves had to go out to stores and do this. And, I was trekking out with them, and I joked and I said, this is the area that people don't see with CEO, right? When it comes down to something needs to be done, CEO has to roll up their sleeves to do it, right? The late nights, the early mornings, the innovativeness, the pounding the pavement for funding, all of that, right? And so, yes, it's a nice title to have, but it also comes along with a lot of responsibility. And oftentimes I've trained myself to make sure that I have prioritized rest, because this position can overtake you, because you literally feel like you have the whole weight of the organization on your shoulders, right? Which you do. And so if, a grant doesn't come in and I have to think about how do I cut things? How do I maneuver monies? How do I do that? That's what's on my shoulders as I'm going to sleep at night. Right. And so it's a beautiful title to have, but it's also a ton of work. And I will also be very transparent to say, as a Black woman in this role, going back to what my original, where I started this off, even looking at like a Kamala, right? One of the things that they said last night with the commentary, I'm a dork. I like to look at CNN commentary. So I was looking at that last night, and, they kept on saying, people have said over and over again and are making Kamala Harris prove herself, right, as the president, right? And where other males did not have to prove themselves, right? But this woman has to prove themselves to know that she could be president. And I oftentimes have been in those testing situations where I have to prove myself, right? In order to be seen as the president and chief executive officer of this organization, right? And sometimes it's outside influences, sometimes inside influence, you don't know. But that is really, truly a thing. And being a Black woman, you have the race that's in there, right? And so, but then you also have the gender component. So it's not always easy. But one of the things that I really do lean on. I have a group of women that I lean on who are in the same positions, and some who are past CEOs and things like that, and who I really lean on to give guidance and to also give wisdom to me on how to handle things. But then it's also again those prayers that come in, because this is life be lifing, and this can overtake you for sure.
Thank you so much again for doing this interview with me. Hopefully we can do a part 2 and we can just talk about more about college, because like I got to think for me, you're preparing my listeners that will be listening to this. It don't have to just be people that's going out of high school. There's some people that are trying to go back into college, that are older. So I guess, like I said, everybody experience is very different. Like I said, I just appreciate you so much for taking the time out. And thank you guys for listening for this episode with Chat and Chill with Sean, with the interview of Ms.Jenn. And I hope you're having an amazing morning, afternoon, evening, or night. I love everyone so much, and thank you so much for tuning in. I love y'all much. Bye.
Bye.